All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Buzz, Studio W, The Buzz, your global radio network. You guys know we circle this thing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the finest in broadcasting you can find anywhere around the globe. You avid listeners, you already know what this program is all about. For those who are just joining us for the first time, Groove Swing Speaks. We try to bring and showcase the best in our community. We go back and we give you historical facts and figures and things like that, and we do our best to relate that to our audience, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate that. So tell a friend you have time in the next hour or so. We have a special guest, and that's Dr. Wendell C. Fuller. Now, we always like to tie in with our guests. We like to tie in the community and also the history along with our guests. Okay, we try to make that interesting. I'll tell you a little bit more about Dr. Fuller secondly in a second. Let me see if I can get YouTube, Facebook hooked up for you. But anyway, I want to bring to the set our panelists, one of our panelists rather, Robert Hicks. Hey, brother Hicks, what's going on?
Everything is everything. Good evening, WB. Good evening, Dr. Fuller. Thank you for being here this evening, and definitely appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. You're in for a treat this evening because of the special guest that we have today. I can't say enough about him. He's a very good brother. I found him in a group, fine group, but definitely he cares about the people. So I just wanted to invite you to just stick around for a while and just have a good time and listen to this brother. He has a lot to drop knowledge on you.
Absolutely. We have a few other panelists going to join us. And I'm making sure Tanisha was on. I think she having a little some technical difficulties. Sergeant Clayton Brown, our groove brother, he will also join us as well. And Tiffany Hilliard. She's our sister Nakaya Watts. She's out on assignment today. She's going to be missed greatly. So anyway, guys, hey, Dr. Fuller, how are you, sir?
Yes, I'm doing blessed, man. I'm doing blessed. Actually, pretty busy day. We had a snow day here in Virginia, so they let us go a little early. Our superintendent's from Chicago, so she didn't see the need to close school. So little snow didn't stop her. And then we actually are rechartering the Prince William chapter of National Association of Black School Educators. So right before I'm on this call, we were doing the bylaws and everything like that. So it's been a pretty busy day, but I definitely wanted to make time for this. I'm a big fan, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start this thing off because, like I said, we try our best to link some Black history to our guests, right? Whether it's education, whether it's medicine, it could be business, because we have made major contributions to this country and the world, and I think it should be duly noted. And so I'm going to kick this off, and I'm going to talk about someone that you told me that you were a fan of, and one of the people, one of our history makers that inspired you, and that's none other than Booker T. Washington. He was an author, educator, orator, philanthropist, and from 1895 until his death in 1915, short-lived, the United States' most famous African American. That little tiny school you guys know down in Alabama, Tuskegee Institute, that currently enrolls more than 3,000 students. He was the founder of Tuskegee Institute, building it into one of the premier universities for African Americans at a time when few alternatives were available. And he raised considerable funds for hundreds of other schools in the South for Black people. Let's see, there's Tanisha right there. Hey, Tanisha.
Hey, everyone. Hola.
Okay, Tanisha, I want you to meet Dr. Fuller.
Okay.
And I'm talking about, since he is an educator and one of someone who inspired him, I thought it'd be a great idea to talk about some people that he told me that inspired him.
Okay.
And I was just talking about Dr. Booker T. Washington, rather.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And there are two others we want to talk about. Robert is going to talk about, I believe, Carter G. Woodson, and I'd like for you. No, I did Booker T. Washington. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I took your spot there.
You did.
I sure did.
Well, did
I
you?
tell you what, pull up Carter G. Woodson, and I'm going to go to Robert next.
Okay, you want to pull up who, Wilson?
Carter G. Woodson. Carter
Okay,
G.
Woodson.
Woodson.
Okay, hold
Okay.
just a second,
It-
you all. Okay.
yes. And Robert, uh, W.E.B. Du Bois. What do you have on him?
Well, what is there not to say about him? I'll go into rare detail because he is definitely one of the intellectuals of our intellectuals basically that we've known Black history. For W.E.B. Du Bois was the first Black American to earn a PhD from Harvard University back in 1895. You think about the time frame basically during the turn of the century when it came down to African Americans, when it came down to education. Interestingly enough, W.E.B. Du Bois was born in Massachusetts, and basically he has became one of the most influential people when it came down to understanding of African American rights. And he became an African American activist during the early 20th century. One of the things that you know from W.E.B. Du Bois is his focus on informing our community about the ills of society, which is where he formed, excuse me, the book which is called the journal is called The Crisis in 1910. And it's also W.E.B. Du Bois was part of the NAACP. He was one of the co-founders of the NAACP. One of the things that was interesting about W.E.B. Du Bois was that being able to challenge people on who they are individually as people. One of his notes when it came down to his seminal work, which is called The Souls of Black Folk in 1903, once again, turn of the century, but very important to note that he mentions the predicament of Black Americans as one of double consciousness. Now, what does that mean? That basically means there are two individuals inside of one person. W.E.B. Du Bois puts it this way, quote, one ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. This term double consciousness has come to be widely used as a theoretical frame to apply to other dynamics of inequality. In this society, even today, Black men have came across the sense of having basically being two people. The person being living here in America, but at the same time knowing who they are as Black people and having to fight in this country. Interestingly enough, within the within the monthly magazine, The Crisis, W.E.B. Du Bois was able to address a lot of the outlawed lynchings that took place in the turn of the century. In a 1915 article, he mentioned in there a list of over the past 3 decades from the 1885 to 1915, basically over 2,700 lynchings that took place in this country. A stark reality of the history of this country, but it's reality. And one thing I also knew, interesting, and did a little research on W.E.B. Du Bois, was the fact that he actually ran for U.S. Senate back in 1950 in the state of New York. He ran under the American Labor Party in 1950, and actually came away with about 206,000 votes. So knowing that he had a presence throughout society, he was very uh, amazing in regards to being able to run for Senate. But one of the other things that W.E.B. Du Bois was very passionate about was Pan-Africanism.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that who we are as individuals here, but also having our ties back to the motherland, as well as throughout the Caribbean as well. And for the last portion of years of his life, W.E.B. Du Bois actually traveled back to and became a citizen in Ghana. So he basically lived up to his words and his teachings by traveling back home to the motherland. What I find kind of interesting also was the date that he died. And W.E.B. Du Bois passed away on August 27th, 1963, the day before the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in Washington, D.C., and the day before Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Wow.
That was telling in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that everything that W.E.B. Du Bois stood for throughout the years eventually came to a head in a sense of the continuation through a lot of leaders, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and as we continue to still do today. So,
wow.
and I'll speak with one quote, if you don't mind, but also it's an interesting note, and it's probably telling times as is it here today. One of W.E.B. Du Bois' quotes was, "Either America will destroy ignorance, or ignorance will destroy the United States."
Wow. How true is that? How true is that? Hey, welcome to set another one of our Groove Brothers, a panelist, Mark Daniels. Hey, Mark.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Doing well, doing well. I don't know whether you met our Groove Brother, Dr. Wendell.
No, I have not.
Okay.
Good evening, brother. How are you?
Steve Fuller.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Feeling blessed, man.
Thanks.
Great.
Yeah.
For some, we lost Tanisha, so this is what I'm going to do. Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson was an American historian who first opened the long neglected field of African and African American history to scholars and popularized the field in schools and colleges across the United States. Let's see. His famous book. Let's talk about his famous book. He wrote more than a dozen books over the course of his career, most notably the Education of the Negro in 1933, with his focus on Western indoctrination. Okay, perhaps Tanisha has it right there. Tanisha, Carter G. Woodson.
So I'm going to just base off, because this is impromptu for me. So, because I was actually ready for W.T. Booker. I had it all down packed. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. So I'm going to go in between the studio. So hold on just a second. Okay.
Okay. No problem.
All right. Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you.
All right. So Carter Goodwin Woodson was born in December 19th, 1875, and he actually died April 3rd, 1950. He actually was an American historian, a journalist, and a founder of the Associations for Studies of African American Life and History. So I can understand why he's by him. He was one of the first scholars to study the history of African diaspora, including African American history, and the founder in the Journal of Negro History in 1916. Woodson has been called the father of Black history.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all following me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. All right. So, of course, as you may know, he's the father of Black history. He also was celebrated and launched a newspaper or a journal back in 22nd February called the Negro History Week, and it was also the precursor to Black History Month. Woodson was an important figure to the movement of Afrocentrism due to his perspective of placing people of African descent at the center of the study of history and the human experience. So this is my quick impromptu notice of this too right here. So I didn't do much research. I had Booker T. Washington. That's what I was told to do.
You did.
sorry, I had to jump into this and read it time and run up the steps.
Tanisha, teaching is a lot like that. Like some
I
days
know, right?
you'll be in the classroom and you got your lesson plan all
Uh-huh,
straightened out, and then the projector screen goes out, and you gotta
uh-huh.
or the internet goes down. You gotta figure it out. So I'm impressed with the resourcefulness.
Did I
Yeah,
do okay?
you did fine. You did fine. And now
Okay.
let's talk about our guest, Dr. Wendell C. Fuller. Currently serves as a special educator and administrator designee. I'm sorry, in Prince William County Schools. He is also an associate professor of education at Northern Virginia Community College. His education includes a Bachelor of Science in Communications from Bowie State University, a Master of Arts in Leadership and Teaching Special Education from Notre Dame of Maryland University, and an education specialist degree in curriculum and instruction. Special education from Liberty University. He earned a doctorate of education in curriculum and instruction, special education from Liberty University. Previously, Wendell served as a special educator in Prince George's public schools. Wendell's 20 years of experience in special education has allowed him to develop numerous individualized education plans for students from all disability categories and develop instructional and behavior management strategies for students from every grade level and demographic. Wendell has also served as PBIS. What is PBIS, Wendell?
PBIS is positive behavior intervention and support. It's a behavior intervention system that is school wide, that basically catches the kids doing good instead of always, you know, kicking them in
Focus,
the neck, basically.
right, right.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on the negative.
Instead of
Yeah,
focus on the negative, focus on the positive, right?
absolutely. I'd love that. A PBS committee chair and a school climate and culture committee chair, where he developed behavior and discipline frameworks for several school sites. As a professor, he specializes in courses focused on training new and aspiring teachers and guiding them towards initial educator certification in Virginia. In Virginia, rather, Wendell is a family man and a man of faith. He and his wife, Stephanie, have three children, Wendell Jr. Uh, and your daughter, is that Aaliyah or Aliyah?
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah and
Aaliyah.
Timothy. He also serves as the Islamic chaplain at, is it Farquhar Health in Warrington?
Fauquier Health.
Farquhar Health in Warrington, Virginia, and is the past president of both the Bowie State and Prince George's County graduate chapters of Groove Social Fellowship Incorporated. He and his family live on the family homestead in Warrington, Virginia. Hey, welcome to the set, Dr. Fuller. Man, we've got a
Thank you,
lot
thank
to
you,
unpack
thank you,
here.
thank
Um, and I want to start off with, let's start off with Tanisha. Tanisha, what questions do you have for Dr. Fuller?
So I like the fact that he has like the abbreviations for positive reinforcement, as far as like you're basically, pointing out positive reinforcement. So what made you come up with that? Because so often
Well,
children actually always scold for negative reinforcement, well, negative behavior versus positive reinforcement. So what made you come up with that?
well, I didn't come up with it. It's a nationwide program.
Mhm.
I can't take credit for it. If I did, I'd be a lot richer than what I am right now. Because I wouldn't be teaching if I came up with that. But PBIS. What drew me to PBIS is that
Mhm.
my first couple years of teaching. Actually, my first job in teaching, I was a substitute teacher
Mhm.
at an elementary school, and they basically had me working with a little boy. I'm not going to say his name, but they had me working with a little boy who was very, very emotionally disabled. He was
Mhm.
sick, and he was pulling out scissors, and he was just pulling girls' hair, calling them the B word. He was in the first
Oh
grade.
man.
He was wilding, and I had it was a little short Jewish lady. I think her name was Bernstein, but I'm not really sure. I don't remember her name too well because it was a while ago. But she basically said, just tell him when he's doing good, right? Tell him when he's doing good,
Mhm.
and don't chastise him as much as, because what I was doing was like, stop, 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 don't do this, don't do that, and she's like, just be positive with him. And when I started my master's program, I realized that there was a theoretical framework to this. When I got to my first certified real teaching job, um, I worked in a program with kids with emotional disabilities, basically an alternative school, and I needed some, just for my peace of mind. I needed a way to get along with these kids, because if I didn't get along with them, somebody was going to get hurt. And I mean, I'm not saying that like I would hit them. I'm
Mhm.
saying that they were throwing
Mhm.
chairs, they would pull out pencils, stab each other. It was a, every day was a karate class if it wasn't a safe situation. So I realized through my reading and learning about PBIS, and also through experience, that if I can connect with them on a positive level, if I can catch them doing good, that the relationships that we build, and that me catching them doing good, that school is a positive thing for them, and I'm a positive. When they're triggered in a positive way when they
Mhm.
come to my classroom, as opposed to being negative. And that's a big part of the problem that kids have in school, why they tune out, because even from kindergarten and pre-K, oh, stop beating on the table, stop running around, stop doing this, stop doing that, and they believe that school is not welcoming for them. So that's kind of where I started at, and why I spent so much time researching it.
So is it kind of similar to, like, I kind of look at it as like similar to, like, is it called CBT or something like that? Similar to,
Cognitive behavior
yeah.
therapy,
Yeah.
it's similar to it.
Okay.
It's basically positive reinforcement, right?
Okay.
So the way PBIS works is,
Mhm.
we'll have a token economy. Basically, we'll
Mhm.
have,
Okay.
it'll be Tiger Bucks, it'll be, Bulldog, Tiger dollars, Bulldog Bucks, um, Kenmore Cash, or whatever the school, you come up with a catchy name for it.
Mhm.
And when the kids are behaving positively,
Mhm.
you provide them something from this token economy. You give them,
Mhm.
5 Tiger Bucks for walking in line. You give them 2 Tiger Bucks for throwing their trash away correctly. You give
Mhm.
them 10 Tiger Bucks for answering a question, attempting to answer a question in class, and then they can then cash in those Tiger Bucks for incentives
Mhm.
in the school, whether it's a dance, ice cream social. You give them, perfect attendance is a big thing at the school I'm at now.
Mhm.
When kids get perfect attendance, we put them in a raffle for Chick-fil-A cards and things like that. So
That's pretty cool.
trying to incentivize the positive behavior, as opposed to um, always focusing on the negative reinforcement.
So I'm kind of curious. What my last question. So what I'm kind of curious about the outcome. I'm going to call him Nick Cannon, because you said he was wilding out. So the
hmm
question: what is the outcome of the child that you did this reinforcement with? What was
Well, it was a total package. So
it? Okay.
the
Okay.
assistant principal there, she was a school psychologist before she became
Mhm.
an assistant principal, and she was a very strong Christian sister. So we
Okay.
recognized that it was really a lot of it was family issue. Mom and dad
Right.
broke up, and there was
Mhm.
child support and custody involved, and
Mhm.
he wanted to be with his daddy. So
Mhm.
what I did was two things. Was I kind of mediated with his mother, where I was like, you know, stop treating his father like that. Like he's trying to be involved. He's coming up to the school. You're not helping yourself
Mhm.
by pushing him away. You're hurting your child.
Mhm.
And because I had built that relationship with her, she was a little younger than me, about my age.
Mhm.
We were able to build kind of a rapport. She took that, and she tried it. She tried to include him. And I also encouraged his mother to take him to a doctor. Now, this is a whole nother conversation. We'll probably do a whole nother show on this.
Mhm.
But most Black children, when they have mental health problems,
Mhm.
we don't take them to the doctor. We take them to,
Church.
you know, we take them to church and we lay hands on them and we try to
Yeah.
exorcise the demons. We
Mm-hmm.
call Uncle Junebug to beat them up. We
Mm-hmm.
put them out.
Mm-hmm.
We take their TV, take their phone. We don't take them to the doctor. Little Johnny, when the white kid gets sick,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as he started talking crazy, that's the first place they go. So they have a whole different set of outcomes when it comes to black kids and mental health. So I encourage his mom to seek treatment, and he got treatment. It's a long process when you go through something like that. When there's trial and error, but eventually he graduated. He went to college,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't talked to him in about maybe 4 years, but he had just graduated high school and was on his way to Prince George's Community College.
Awesome. Okay.
Amazing, amazing. We're getting a lot of great comments here, and because Emma was saying, Emma Brown, she wanted to know, does anyone know why was the month of February chosen for Black History Month? And Rock just put this up, and uh, Dr. Fuller,
Yes,
this
sir.
is what The Rock says. Woodson chose February for the reasons of tradition and reform. It's commonly said that Woodson selected February to encompass the birthdays of two great Americans who played a prominent role in shaping Black history, namely Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, whose birthdays are the 12th and the 14th, respectively. More importantly, he chose them for reasons of tradition since Lincoln assassination in 1865. The Black community, along with other Republicans, uh, had celebrating. Okay, I don't. That is cut off right there. Would you
Oh.
like to compliment on that
Hmm.
Yeah, so
comment,
I
brother?
think it's a trope. It's kind of a trope that we kind of tell on ourselves that Black History Month is in February because it's the shortest month, right?
Right.
Right.
We tell ourselves that maybe there's reasons why we are distrustful, or not maybe there are reasons why we should be distrustful of whatever the government sanctions, or what have you. We've been lied to a lot. But at the end of the day, that is the correct reason, because Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass's birthdays are in that month. Um, Carter G. Woodson decided to use February, and that was also the week of Negro History Week, when he founded Negro History Week, and Negro
Yeah.
History Week eventually was able to expand to an entire month, specifically during the Civil Rights Movement, as Martin Luther King was able to kind of use their own scripture and their own ethics to really convict the soul of white America and say, hey, we've done wrong. So when they realize that, it just like after George Floyd, organizations got a lot of money and a lot of attention from white businesses and the government and things like that. The same thing happened after the March on Washington, and specifically the death of Martin Luther King, where white society realized, at least to whatever degree, I mean, they may not ever get it, right? We got to be prepared for that they may not ever want us to be with their daughter or at their country club. They may not ever want that, but at the end of the day, they we made some progress because of his death, and unfortunately, it took that to expand it as much as it has been over the years.
I have some more questions, but I'm going to toss this over to Mark. Mark, I'm sure you have some questions for Dr. Fuller.
Yeah. One of the questions I would have, uh, just out of curiosity, when you were saying, the black families and how they handle this, is a lot of times the thing I hear when you see children that are having issues like that is the family goes into denial a lot of times and say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with them. They'll grow up out of it." His aunt or uncle or his brother, whoever was like that. And how do you deal with that when they're pushing back, when you're trying to lead them in a direction of getting help?
Um, well, I'm on YouTube, and this is public, but we're among family, right? So I've been through this myself, right? With mental health. When I was 15, 16, 17, Specifically after my first semester of college. I smoked a little too much weed, right? And it really affected my mental health. I mean, dramatically. Like I went from straight edge ROTC SGA president to like basically bumming around. And my father, out of everybody in my family, I dealt with this. My mother, oh, he's just a bad seed. Let him go, put
Mm.
him out. My own mother, I love my mother, right? But she was very hurt, didn't know how to handle it. My aunts, I come from a very diverse family religiously, so my Christian aunts were kind of like, "Hey, you need to take him to church and get him in Bible study and get him in Turning Point or some kind of program." My Muslim aunts were saying, "Don't trust the doctors because they're going to poison him and they're going to make him sick." But my dad, and I'm hoping he's watching, my dad, out of everybody in my life, said, "No, my son is sick. This is a medical issue," and he forced me literally. Went to the judge. He's a Mason, so he went and did the grand hailing sign or whatever, and got the judge to send the sheriff and take me to the hospital. And he did that about 4 or 5 times until I figured it out. And once I said, okay, I'll try this. I'm gonna take my medication. I mean, it's like a clear line right here between the day before and the day after, where the day before I was a college dropout, you know, criminally involved, so on and so forth, to now here I am 20, 30 years, 35 years later, where, I got kids, I got property, I got a doctorate, I got, all this other kind of stuff. So it's
Mm.
not a magic bullet. There's other things that go involved with it, but that's how I personally tell the story. I tell my own story in
Mm-hmm.
those IEP meetings with those families. When I first started teaching, I was very cautious about that. I was, even my dad would tell me, "Hey, you don't know, people don't need to know all that about you." But the further and further I got away from the dark space, the more I wanted to shine light on it. And um, the other thing is just helping people understand. We're talking about Black History Month. You know, biological psychiatry or chemical psychiatry is an African science. It's not, these European scientists didn't know anything about it until they raided the tombs in Kemet. Dr. Naeem Akbar, who is one of the world's most renowned psychologists, he wrote a whole book on this, the African origin of biological psychiatry, where Egyptians, they had brain surgery. They knew about the neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, and they were actually chemically altering them with different chemicals so that people could live adjusted lives. So this is our science. We originated it, and it's not something, as much as there's problems in it, and it's a give and take as to the side effects and things like that. But at the end of the day, this is something that we need to reclaim for our own. And I was blessed with black doctors, with Muslim
Mhm.
doctors, with Christian doctors, with black counselors and things like that, and black teachers. HBCUs. You know, being at HBCU made a big difference because I had people that understood the necessity of getting the help. So that's basically how I did it. I said a lot, but that's it's something that's real personal to me. So
I find it a fascinating story myself. And let me ask you a question because how do you, when, say you're giving a lecture or you're teaching a class, do you find that when you are telling your story, the children can relate to it more than if you're talking about someone else?
you know, yes and no. Kids are mean. Kids are very mean, right? So you have to be very, it's a teaching is an art and it's a science. It's like you kind of have to balance between those two. So you have to know when is the right space and the right time to have that conversation.
Mhm.
um when I do share this conversation, it's because I know I'm in a safe space. and I know that it's something that's going to impact the kids. I know it's something that's going to help them. Um, but to your question, do they relate better with me versus hearing about somebody else? That's definitely, especially for our black students, black boys specifically, because
Mhm.
they don't have anybody that looks like them, that speaks their language, that knows the handshake, that's able to have that conversation with them.
Wow.
Most times when I have the conversation, it's with those students.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, white students, I have but specifically the boys. When I have these conversations, um, it's a manhood issue, and when we have those conversations about a manhood issue, their ears go up. They hear it. Just like a little wolf. Um, they're like, oh, it's an antenna that they hear. Um, it's an antenna that they react to. Yeah.
Welcome to the set, our sister Tiffany. Hey, Tiff.
Hello, everyone. Greetings and hola, my sister.
Hola.
I do
Yeah,
apologize for being late. Just got home from work, but nevertheless, I'm here.
that's quite all right. What questions do you have for Dr. Fuller?
This is my first time meeting you. So, hello, sir. How are
Hello,
you?
hello. Hey, how's everybody?
Good. So I did read your bio, and I'm pretty sure you probably already went over this at the beginning. But my question is, what made you go into this particular field?
Well, two things. I'm certified in history, and I'm also certified in special education. I got my love for history as a very young man. It started off with military history. I was into, I had all the ranks on my wall, and I would sit and watch, History Channel about World War II and World War I and Korea and Civil War and stuff. Um, I was always into that when I was a kid, but it really got solidified in fifth grade that I wanted to really do something in government, politics, history. My fifth grade teacher, Miss Noor, um, I don't know that I can really put my finger on what she did or what she said, but she she fed my love for civics and history and government. And when she realized, so I remember the Berlin Wall had just come down. I was in the fifth grade, and she said, "I want everybody to make predictions about what's going to happen after the Berlin Wall came down." And everybody was saying, "Oh, you know, Germany's going to fight." They were coming to all these things, and I raised my hand, only black in the class. I said, East and West Germany are going to reunify. And she stopped
Wow.
and she said, nah, that's not going to happen. I said, mark my words, they're going to reunify.
Hmm.
And before I left in sixth grade, this was in fifth grade, the next year, I guess a year and a half later, they had reunified. And she
Hmm.
said, you got it. She patted me on the back. She's like, you called it. So that just kind of solidified. As far as special ed, again, working with that one student, my own experience first and foremost was part of the reason why I wanted to do SPED. But then working with that student, that first grader, when I first started out as a sub, really solidified my 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 confidence that I could do this. And then the last reason was because I knew I would always have a job. Was one of the reasons why I got into SPED, because they told me they were paying for the SPED certification, they were paying for the masters, and as a SPED teacher, and I tell all the people who are interested in being educators, get certified in ESOL or get certified in SPED, because if you do, you are always the last person let go, because there's such a need for that. And last thing I'll say is that most of the kids in SPED are black boys, and I knew that was a focus for me, and I wanted to be around those kids who really needed the help, because a lot of them are in SPED because of family issues, not because there's something biologically wrong with them. And I knew in that space, Uncle Wendell would be
Hmm.
effective.
Great. What does those acronyms mean? ESOL and SPED. What does that stand
SPED
for?
is special education, and ESOL is English speakers or English for speakers of other languages. So
Mhm.
basically, for people teaching students that are coming from other countries that don't speak English.
Before I go to Mark, uh, I find your approach to education and your approach to teaching fascinating. Do you find what I find when I'm speaking to people is that the more positive affirmations you can give, and especially if you find that this particular child is labeled a troubled child, do you find that it could be because they've always been fed negative information? And do you find that with your approach with PBIS, that it changes the game?
Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, I don't read. I purposely don't read the paperwork when I get new students. I don't read it. I don't read it. I mean, I probably get myself in trouble if my boss hears me say this, but I don't. I don't read. I don't read the IEP. I don't. You know, I probably do that. Like if school starts in August, unless the IEP is getting ready to come due, I'll read the accommodations and modifications I need to make. You know,
Hmm.
like at a glance, but I'm not going to ingest all of the disability and deficiencies that these students have unless there's something really like I really need to understand what's going on with this kid. But
Hmm.
most of these little boys, they just kids. Kids have
Right.
not changed. They're the same as they were when I was in school, when you was in school. They just want to be loved. They just need a kick in the pants, and they just need somebody to believe in them. And
Mhm.
when I find that when I just build that relationship first, and I show them that they know that I care, they know that I'm there because I love them. I mean, I really do. I really do love them. And when they realize that I'm willing to have conversations with them, talk to them about football, talk to them about Beyonce or Kendrick Lamar, whatever, and they know I'm old. I'm 45. I don't know. I don't can't even understand what he's saying, but like I'm willing to engage with them. Then they're like, okay, they let their guard down, and then that's when you can really teach them.
Mm. I loved your approach to teaching. Mark, what do you got?
Nothing. I'm just, I mean, he's kind of spot on with a lot of the things that I would, hope that are out there, especially with the programs for, for our young Black youth. I think it's, um, I think it's promising. I think it's something that should be looked into a lot more
Mhm.
because we need these programs and we need them to continue because I tell you, it's not going to get any easier.
Mhm.
And I mean, we got to have these programs out there.
Absolutely, because Wendell, I know you know this, and when these children start opening up to you, and they are able to trust you, you find some hidden gems, don't you?
They're all
Like,
hidden gems,
whoa.
like the song says, "Black diamonds and pearls." You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Like that's what they are. I mean,
Hmm.
like I said, we can worry about like we can worry about the Rothschilds and the Bernsteins and the all these other people saying they the chosen people. They're not the chosen people. That's Pookie and Ray Ray and LaQuisha and them. That's the chosen people.
I got you.
They the chosen. I mean, nobody else in history fits the description like these kids. The slavery, the conditions they live in, the faith that they have inherited from their ancestors and that they have built on their own. These kids, they will eventually rule the world, either in my lifetime, my son's lifetime, or my grandkids' lifetime. They're going to basically remove all of this hoorah rah stuff that we see going on. It's going to be gone, and they're going to be
Right.
the ones to do it.
We all are positive of our environment, and a lot of these children are coming in uh, from a negative. Even it could be even at home. you know uh,
Yeah,
and many parents have made the mistake. Well, you're just like your daddy. You're not going to be any good. uh, I'm going to leave you because I can't put up with this. And that has an impact on the children. I believe that, doctor. And when you come in, now you're still hold the authority. You're the
Right.
authority in the room. However, how do you find it affects them and the communication? And do you find yourself bridging that communication gap because
Well,
they're able to trust you and you're not coming from a negative
right.
point of
So,
view?
two things I'll say about that is you're right
Shoot.
that um, the problem of black fatherhood and black marriage, it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, especially the sisters. Right? It's hard to have the conversation. But the fact that we are having these babies and we're not together, we're not together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we fighting, we fussing, we calling the judge, calling the police.
Mm.
We messing with baby mother's cousin and baby father's friend, and smoking and we drinking and we clubbing and we Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and all. Like, it's sick, it's toxic, and the kids are so affected by that. Like, it's not even
Of course.
like, the fact that me and my wife are together, like, she gets on my last nerve, right? But I mean, like, I'd be ready to, like, but like the fact that, what I'm saying, like, I can lay down at night and know that I'm safe. Like, I can leave, you know, I can put all the life insurance in her name, and I know that, like, it's gonna be okay. I could die today or tomorrow, and she's gonna figure it out. That
Mm-hmm.
makes all the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, you know, these kids, even the teachers, the parents, we look at the kids as the problem, right? The
Right.
teachers. So, but here's the thing: if they're your kids, you the problem, right? If you're the if your kid is trifling, that's because you raised him to be trifling,
That's
because
right.
he didn't have any, and he couldn't raise himself, right? He didn't know any better. So if the older generation is disgusted with the younger generation, then look at yourself. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I do. I'm looking when I hear the kids listen to the mumble rap and the Molly Percocet shoot 'em up bang bang. I can't fault them because I listened to Snoop Dogg and Jay-Z and NWA when I was a kid. So I can't blame them for that. And we have to be more mindful, but specifically marriage and fatherhood. If we fix that problem,
Mm-hmm.
education is not going to be a problem. It's not. It's
Absolutely.
education
Absolutely.
be corrected.
I would tell you, I remember my son called me, and he was in high school. And I said, and I noticed that his grades weren't up to par. And I said, well, what's the problem, son? He said, Dad, I hate school. I said, well, let's figure something out because you're not dropping out. So I said, this is what I want you to do. I said, I want you to go to each one of your teachers that you're having a problem with and ask them for their advice on how you can improve your grades. And less than two semesters later, he was on the honor roll. And I
Hmm.
said, nope, you're not dropping out. This is what we're going to do. We're going to have a plan of action. And I think that it's important for parents to communicate their children, because they have these children, but they leave it up to the teacher to do the babysitting or the nurturing,
Hmm.
uh, not showing any interest in what they're doing. Go in your room and do your homework instead of saying, okay, sit here at the table. Let's see. I want to see your homework completed. Okay, let's do this and get them in the habit of doing that and reading. So we've got, man, I can't believe we got 13 minutes left. I'm going to toss it over to Robert. Robert, what do you have?
Thank you very much. Dr. Fuller, one of the things that is important when it comes down to education is not only in the sense of each teacher is in the school, but also how important is education when it comes down to being in the household, in the home.
That's what we're
Right.
talking about.
Well, Rob knows me well, So, full disclosure, Rob tutors my kids, right, in math. So my kids call him Uncle Rob. So he knows how much. One of the reasons why I was an administrator for a little while, right? I was an assistant principal. And one of the reasons why I pulled back and went back to the classroom was because I could not really focus on my kids. My kids have been at home since COVID. My kids are at home. I don't they're not they don't go to the public school every day because I'm their primary educator. My kids know how to cook. My kids know how to change. They have a little brother. We have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And
Mm.
she's still mad about that, right? She's not. That was that was a con that we went to the conclave and we had a good time. And she's like, man, I can't believe you did that. But my son, they know how to change Pampers. They know how to make a bottle. They know how to share. They know how to
Mhm.
pray. My mother taught me when Wendell was first born in 2007. You teach him how to read and you teach him how to pray. Everything else will be worked out.
That's amazing.
But most times, we have a false sense of what education really is, right? We're thinking, when our kids are little, we imagine the graduation. We imagine the post. Girls are writing their posts. The fathers and mothers are writing their Instagram posts for their kids' college decision day when they're like 2 years old.
Mhm.
They're. I mean, I'm saying that facetiously, but they're thinking, okay, my son is going to LSU to play football, and he's a left tackle and blah. Like that's what we think. We've been taught to basically look at worldly accomplishments and success as success. We don't think about how long can you stay married. We don't think about you know do you are you civically engaged. We don't think about you know how much charity do you give. Now, how many people do you know? Now, Groove, I think, is a little different, right? Groove and Swing, we do a lot of charity work, but most of the people that you see in the media or on TV or on Facebook or Instagram, they're not bragging about how much money they give away. They're bragging about how much money they can waste on rims and shoes and all that kind of stuff. So for me, but my son could be an electrician, he could be a plumber, he could work at Walmart, he could be a computer technician, whatever. But my rubric as a parent for my son's success is, can he retire? Can he stay on a
Mhm.
job? Can he stay married? Is he a good father? Is he a good husband?
Mhm.
Is he honest? These are the kind of things that I think got lost in integration. When we integrated into society, we basically looked at American the American dream as success, as opposed to what we really focused on during slavery and during segregation, where it was, not to say that integration was a bad thing. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's another debate. But we lost a lot of our character education through
Mhm.
integration. We lost a lot of that.
Wow. Before I go to Tiffany, got a question. When your daughter is the 1 year old, is that correct?
No, my daughter's the 14-year-old.
Is a 14 year old, and even your 1 year old. Do you and your wife, were growing up when they were all around 1 or 2 or whatever? Did you read to them?
Every day,
Uh, please, I'm sorry.
every day,
That makes a
every
difference, doesn't it? Makes a
every day.
difference, doesn't it?
Yes, makes all the difference. And not only that, but what are you reading to them? Cat in the
Excellent.
Hat. Now, I mean, stuff. My son, he's 17. This is kind of stuff he's reading, right?
Come
This is
on.
his book. This is his book. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying?
Message to the black
um
man.
Mess to the black man. We got the Bible, we got the Quran, we got, my son has read all the W.B. Du Bois. I learned more about W.B. Du Bois from my son than I knew from college, because my son has been reading the book. So, you know like I said, if I depended on and he was in school up until sixth grade, but I never. You can't depend the same people that
Mhm.
made it illegal for you to read, the same system.
Come on.
If we depend on them to enlighten our children, then we're going to fail every time.
Absolutely.
We're gonna be tricked every time. The system is not built. My mother, where I live in Fauquier County, my mother just 60 years ago was in a segregated school. So
Mhm.
I can't assume that my kids going to that same school district with the grandkids and the kids of the people who segregated my mother are going to somehow make my daughter a a, a righteous, you know, loving
Mhm.
intellectual.
Mhm.
It just doesn't it's not reality.
That's
And I
right. It's
think
not designed.
we failed in that sense that we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money. I mean,
Mhm.
if the amount of money that we spend on college and private school and tutoring and basically, we're paying for our own miseducation. We're paying for our kids to basically look at Europe and look at America as the model, and
Mhm.
that's a big part of the problem.
Amazing, amazing. Tiffany, it's your
Oh, Tiffany, you're muted.
yeah, you're muted.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
That's okay.
Um, you may have already covered this at the beginning, but my two questions is what made you join Groove? And the follow up with that is after you have joined Groove, um, how has that helped you in as far as like your teaching or just overall in general?
Well, the sisters might not be privy to this, but we've been having a debate in the Facebook group about the literature that we read as a group. And what made me join Groove? I was a student at Bowie State, and Michael Hughes, Dr. Michael Hughes, was the disability service coordinator at Bowie State. Um, I was in the hospital, and I knew from all the reading I was doing in the hospital that I needed to go back to college after flunking out three times. So I called Bowie and I'm telling this sad story. I need to, and I'm in the hospital, and I'm telling all the sad story. And they said, I know who you need to talk to. And they transferred me to Dr. Hughes. He's a groove.
Mm.
And he was in the process when I got the Bowie of reactivating the chapter after 23 years. Um, I'm in his office one day and I'm reading Descartes. And Descartes says, I think, therefore I am.
Mm.
And he said, oh man, that's wild. What do you know about that? I said, I don't know. So I'm reading the whole book on Descartes, and he said, well, I got something for you. I want to introduce you to somebody. So he introduced me to my line brother. He said he's gonna. Now, me at the time, I had no idea what this was all about. I didn't know that I had basically struck a gold mine when he said this. When I said that, when I read that book, it was an accident. I just pulled the book off the shelf, and he introduced me to his line brother. And then when I got online, a fellow named Clayton Witt and Phil Murray. Clayton Witt was my Clayton Witt was my grad advisor, and Phil Murray was my DP. And they gave me two books: Stolen Legacy and From the Browder File. And these books were already, as I had kind of gone through my process of trying to correct my thinking from years and years. Yeah, see, Stolen Legacy, there it is right there. um, these books were already in my library, and I knew I was in the right space. As far as how Groove has helped me, so I'll say this: God sent me this way. I had no. I'm not a joiner. I'm not a Mason. I'm not an Elk. I'm not a Rosicrucian. Not none of that. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. I'm not in a whole bunch of groups. I don't want to be like in the club. Like I don't need all that. I'm kind of to myself. But God sent me this way, and it was brothers who, for the most part, I mean, I've had some, I bumped heads with a couple brothers in my years, but um, these are brothers that are like minded that have the same perspective. As far as how Groove has helped me, I don't have friends from childhood because I moved in ninth grade. My friends from my first neighborhood, um, they all up the road or in the ground, right? So my parents moved us out, so I don't hang out with any of them. And my friends from my new neighborhood, they all grew up together. They were sandbox, and I came around the ninth grade, so I didn't really mesh with them too well. So Groove actually gave me that those lifelong friendships that I didn't have as a kid. And then the other thing was my chapter, Bulldog One chapter, and PG Grad is all educators. It's all teachers. So my foray into education was because of people like Dr. Hughes and Dr. Word and Alvin Pendale and Omar Jones and these guys. Hey man, look, you trying to do TV and radio. You got my wife was pregnant my last semester in school. They're like, you need to go get the job. You need to go be a teacher. So just get a job as a teacher and we'll work it out. And Dr. Word wrote my first recommendation to go to grad school to be a teacher. Um, these brothers, when I had trouble with administrators or I needed help trying to figure out how to deal with troubled kids, along with my dad, these guys, you know, they set me on the straight and narrow. And a lot of who I am today, as an educator, as a man. I didn't do because I was in recovery through most of my first couple of years of being in Groove. I didn't do the Groove Juice. I didn't do the strolling. I didn't do the stepping. I was with the old heads. When we go to the cookout, I would go sit with the old retired grooves and I would go sit with them. And these guys basically was able to, fill in the gaps that my dad couldn't fill because he's not a college graduate. Um, so they were able to fill in those gaps in ways that um like people who did for my dad, like the people who mentored him, they mentored me into the scholar and man. And last thing I'll say, Dr. Word told me when I first graduated Bowie, he said, if you don't get your doctorate, you dropped out. And I said, okay, and I was like, I'm not no dropout. I'm not going to quit. He's like, if you don't get your doctorate, you quit. You're a
Uh-huh.
quitter. And
Oh boy.
I toughed through the dissertation to actually be called Dr. Fuller because of him.
Wow,
Wow.
this is incredible. Dr. Fuller, can you hang on just for a few more minutes? Another one of your brothers and my biological brother, Clayton Brown, he had been trying to get in all night and finally he got in. Hey, Clayton, meet Dr. Wendell C. Fuller.
Greetings, my brother. How are you?
Pretty good, brother.
And you're welcome. I'm kind of exhausted from trying to get into this portal. I don't
Take your time,
understand
man.
it,
Take your
but
time.
that's technology for you. And I'm so elated that you was able to join us and give us your professional information. So I know I missed a lot, so I'll catch up when I replay it. So what did I miss? Somebody fill me in.
Uh, I can't. Maybe Robert can. I can't tell you. There's so much, and Dr. Fuller. That's why we must have you back.
Yes.
Just a wealth of knowledge, and this has been inspiring. He talked about his background. Oh, before we do that, Dr. Fuller, your contact information is up on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. For those who are listening to the audio only, tell them how to contact you.
They can contact me. My business number. I do have a business, Fuller Learning Services. The business number is 301 458 My email is WC, that's like Window Christopher, WC Fuller at gmail.com. And if Instagram is groove.soldier. On X, it's at WC Fuller and Windows C. Fuller on Facebook and Windows C. Fuller EDD on LinkedIn.
Right. And Clayton, perhaps someone else can sum it up. But what I gathered from this, Dr. Fuller, he's been doing this for a while. He's been teaching for a while. He helps also other aspiring teachers to get their certification. Am I correct about that?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
also, he's dealt most of his educational career. He's dealt with what a lot of what society was dealing as troubled children, children that's having trouble learning, or with bad kids, and so and so. And so that's why I was so impressed by PBIS. Will you tell the audience what does PBS stand for again?
Positive behavior intervention and support.
And that's his approach to education.
Yeah, I didn't make it up. Just to be clear, I didn't make it up. There's a PBIS center. They have conferences. School districts all around the country get involved with it. But that's the framework, and that was the stamp that was put on me as a new teacher. That if I can be part. Oh, my wife is cooking, so she's putting a foot to something downstairs. But basically, be positive with the kids as opposed to, do something instead of, chastising them, be positive. Let me mute myself and I'll let y'all finish the conversation to make
Okay.
sure.
Yeah,
I'm
I
on the
was
same
wondering.
page
You
with
sure
that.
that's not an alarm to get off air? Come to. So,
We want to be sure that your house is still up and running. But I know that whatever is being made is going to be a great dinner. That's for sure.
right.
But
Right.
Dr. Fuller, I have this question. Do you believe there's such thing as bad children, or
I
is
was
it
going to stop him. I
is
don't. I
there
don't think.
the bad teachers?
Um, I don't think there's bad children.
Right.
There's no such thing as a bad child because a child, you know,
Is a product.
w- you know, in church, and then one of the reasons I became a Muslim is because I never could really get with the idea of original sin, right? Um, in the 5% nation and in the nation of Islam, you learn who's the original man. He's the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. Like these kids they just don't know who they are. They don't recognize their own divinity. They don't recognize, like the Bible says, you're created in the image and likeness of the creator. That's how we're created. That's the nature that he formed you in, right? He basically he told the angels bow down to him, right? And we have we've kind of bought into the idea that we're just woe is me. I'm just this dirty rag of a man, and I can't do this and I can't do that, and I'm just so evil, and the devil made me do it. And the kids they definitely, by teaching them that for 400 years, um they've sucked it all up. They've soaked it all in. They don't, as soon as their crown chakra is about to blow, they just not nothing. And when you tell them that, the same spirit, like it says in the Bible, the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead is in you, right? And you don't say it like that in the classroom, right? You can't say it
Mhm.
like that. You can't teach them who you can't pull out the Bible and start having Bible study or Quran study. You can't pull out message to the black man in the classroom. But when you remind them that you are the fathers of civilization, right? That's why I teach history, because I'm able to tell them. We just talked about this in class just this week. We're learning about ancient Greece, and I told them Greece didn't come up with this on their own.
Come on.
You know, they didn't come
That's
up with this on
exactly
their
right.
own. Now I tell them, hey, this is not in the curriculum. This is this is Wendell talking. This is not Dr. Fuller, but the Greeks didn't come up with this on their own.
Okay. Real
And
quick, because I don't want your wife strangling you, doctor. But I have to address this. One of our friends, and Clayton know this lady very well, Jackie Whitfield Mitchell out of Texas. She says no child is bad. They imitate their atmosphere.
yes,
That's true.
yes,
Most definitely.
yes. And they also, not just their atmosphere, but their self-image. Who do
Mm-hmm.
they think they are? If you ask a kid, who are you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, if I could ask each one of us, who are you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you? Are you are you divine? Are you a sinner? Are you a slave? That's part of the reason why, we talked about Black history, right? And Carter
Right.
G. Woodson was so important because he made us recognize that Black history, and this is a long process, right? For us to go from slaves completely in the darkness to now in 2025, Black history does not start with 1619,
That's
right?
right.
There was a whole there was millennia of civilization that happened in the Americas. Yes, the Black people in the Americas, the Black people in Australia, Black
Mm-hmm.
people in India, Black people in China, Black people in Europe, Black people in Africa, that built these amazing civilizations that European scholars and anthropologists still can't figure it out.
That's right.
And when some of us, right, who really have knuckled in and really have spent time looking at the non-traditional sources, um, we're able to share some of this, right? But it's a stolen legacy that we have to reclaim. And groove is a big part of that. I believe that, Groove I Groove, in my lifetime, groove is going to become the standard for Black fraternal organizations. Same thing with Swing Five Swing,
I
where
Right.
we're
believe that.
actually we're recognizing our own history. Because if you look at all the organizations that are around, this is not to knock them. They do great work. They're important parts of Black society. But when you look at all the Black organizations, whether it's Prince Hall, it's King Solomon. If you look at the Greeks, it's Athens and Pan-Hellenic. But Black
Mm-hmm.
people don't come from you know King Solomon is one thing that we're not talking about our people. We
That's
know
right.
what Confucius say. We know what Muhammad say. We know what Jesus say. Um, we know what Socrates say. But what does the Black man say?
That's right.
And Groove is going to answer that question. I believe that.
I think so too. And
I have a
and many
question.
of us don't know about the Moors who
Right.
taught the Europeans, gave them the culture, even taught them it, how to bathe. Come on.
Yeah.
So there's
I, ha-
so much
I have a
there.
question. Excuse me for breaking in, but I just need to ask this question. And a lot of people get twisted up about this. How do you feel about us being called black in the first place?
Well, like I said, I have my phase over here, right? My phase. I've gone through. Um, I've read the more science. I read uh, I've studied with the Nation of Islam. I've studied with, um, guys like Dane Calloway who talked about, like, our tribal. A lot of our African Americans actually were already here, right? Um,
Mhm.
the Moors, the Incas wore fezzes, right?
Mhm.
America did not. It didn't come from Amerigo Vespucci. Amaruca was the Inca name for this land when the Portuguese and the Spanish got here, right? So when we recognize our national descent, right? When we reckon, this was what the Noble Drew Ali was talking about with the Moorish Science Temple, where when we, if you're Italian, even if your mother, great grandmother came here on the Mayflower, you're still Irish, or you're still Italian, or you're still English. And
Mhm.
we're the only people that don't recognize our national descent name.
Hmm.
And um, I think we're new people. I think we have developed a new ethos and a new culture, but recognizing our uh, recognizing our ancestors for who they are, that we're not just African Americans, we're not just slaves, but actually connecting to, and you can call it different things. You could say Asiatic black man, you can say Moorish American, you can say African, you can say African, you can say original man, you can say all. There's a lot of different names that have permeated through society in these different groups. But I think whatever method or methodology that you use, we have to start finding a different way, like in the Kwanzaa principles, Kuji Chakalia, right? Self-determination. We name ourselves, we define ourselves, and we've been defined by slavery when there's so much. So last thing I'll say about Black history, and we talked about this. I talk about this a lot with my colleagues. I mean, most of the history department at my school is white, but because I'm more conscious of the real power dynamics that happen, I'm able to have these conversations like, oh, I didn't know white people got ashy, and they laugh, right? They don't get offended, right?
Mhm.
So I'm able to have those conversations, but I tell them, we spent 10 weeks on Greece, we spent 8 weeks on Rome, we spent, five class periods on Islam, we spent, you know, 3 weeks on Christianity, we spent 2 weeks on Persia, 3 weeks on China, but we spend one day on West
Mhm.
Africa. Literally one day. That's it. And
Mm.
that is the Virginia standards of learning curriculum. It was the same in it's the same in black districts. And here in Maryland, when I was in Maryland in a all black district, and Maryland, which is a predominantly black state, it was the same thing.
Mm.
And until we do things like get a doctorate, get on the curriculum board, and actually demand that the history be told before 1619, and until in the meantime, between time, the revolution starts in the cradle. You got to teach this to your kids.
Right.
You got to teach this to your kids. I mean, you can't expect you're not going to expect Johnny and Becky and Karen to teach this to your kids. They don't know it, and even if they did know it, they wouldn't teach it to them. So
That's
we have to
exactly.
teach this to our kids, and when we do that, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
This has been fascinating, Doctor. You must come back. You know,
Anytime, man.
we've
Anytime.
already taken you 15 minutes over. Thank you for being patient with us and spending this extra time with us. And we're committed to talking or teaching or sharing our Black history, our history. And so I decided that not only in February but throughout the year, I'm going to take what like you being a doctor and you an educator, and that's why we talked about Carter G. Woodson. We talked about W.E.B. Du Bois. We talked about Booker T. Washington, and we're going to do this each show and relate or link some Black history to our guests, whether it's business, whether it's education, whether it's medicine, whatever it is. It will be taught here. And so I want to thank you again. Anyone have anything to say before we depart?
I want to say thank you. I love material, raw information is really, really great.
Absolutely.
A lot from you.
It's been
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. I'm inspired. Anyone
I'm
else? Real
sorry.
quick?
I'm sorry. I missed so much.
Man, it was a lot. It was a lot.
I know
So
it
that's why
was.
we have to have Dr. Fuller back with us. Anyone else have anything to say?
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and hopefully we can meet in person. But thank you.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Okay.
I'm honored to be here. You know, it's it's not lost on me that I didn't start in this place in life, and you guys, when people believe in me, it means a lot because that wasn't always where I was in life. So I appreciate you guys, bringing me on, and I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Okay. We'll get together with
Thank
Rock.
you,
And
brother.
again, I want to publicly thank Rock for all of the hard work she does.
Yes.
She's the
Thanks,
reason why
Rock.
you're on. And we really appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Fuller. It's been our pleasure. I know I'm speaking for the panel, but I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. I certainly did.
I
Thank you
did.
so much.
You did.
Have
Oh,